right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Play, Pause, Rewind. We're back again after 2 weeks. Niles, how have you been in the last 14 days?
Oh, I've been hanging in there. Just getting over a little bit of a cold or something. So I'm going to try not to sneeze or cough during this episode. So apologies if I hurt your ears when you're listening, but I'll do my best. Dylan, how about you?
I have been pretty good, mostly. Nothing exciting going on, really, but, good couple weeks.
That's adult life,
That's
adult life.
It really is. You work, and then you rest, and then you work again, and then you get 48 hours off, and then you do it all again.
It's a wonderful life we live. And then we get to watch movies in our free time.
We do.
And,
like
today we're talking about the Northman.
Yeah. So I saw this about a week and a half ago, and you saw it this weekend, I think. The Northman, for those of you who don't know, is an adaptation of the Scandinavian legend that directly inspired Shakespeare's Hamlet. So it's kind of like, this conversation's gonna be weird. It's gonna be kind of like when we talked about Dune, how the movie Dune took maybe some visual cues from Star Wars that was very much inspired by Dune.
Yeah. So. Right. It's like a self-feeding kind of prophecy of just like a spiral of like, oh yeah, so that's a connection. But I mean, super excited to talk about it. This is a piece of historical fiction, and it's taking place in Iceland during the late 800s. And it depicts Prince Amleth's quest to avenge the brutal murder of his father by his uncle. So it is very similar to Hamlet, which both of us have read, but we have not read the
original legend,
as it were, yeah.
And the where did I write this? I wrote the guy's name down. Okay. So the main sort of custodian of this legend back in the day who wrote it down was a Danish historian named Saxo Grammaticus, and the legend of Amleth was written in a series of his broader historical works. I don't know any details about like the amount of truth that there is in this, but like a lot of legends, they're greatly exaggerated in a lot of ways. So I'm sure this was as well. But yeah, go for it.
I was just gonna say, epics and tales like this, a lot of them I feel are passed from one generation to the next just by word of mouth. That's how we got Beowulf. Beowulf was like that's just jesters recounting that in their, like, they have that shit memorized, and they're recounting that in court, and that's how it's passed down time and time again. And now we have the Beowulf that we know, but it's probably been changed a lot over the years. It's not very truthful.
The legend grows, and I mean we you can even see that in, like, even just within American history. It's like people like Davy Crockett or the American Revolution. It's like, that is not the stories we hear about those time periods are not true. They're myth. And in our case, in America, I think a lot of the myth was like deliberately built early on to add that mythic element to it.
Yes,
but yeah, so we're gonna do non-spoilers for a couple minutes, and then dive in. I will say right off the bat, this movie is not doing very well at the box office, and it's really good. So you should go see it. You should go see this movie. It was supposed to have like a $70 million budget. I think it ballooned to 90 due to COVID, and it just checked Box Office Mojo, because it has not made that much money.
Oh, that's a shame, because I really like Robert Eggers' stuff. He's, The Witch and The Lighthouse are just such phenomenal films. So I was really excited when I saw this trailer. I was like, that's a movie I'm paying to go see. I'm calling that right now.
Yeah, and it's only made just shy of $42 million worldwide. So it's bombing, and it sucks because like 20 years ago, this would have been a huge hit financially. I think it's like I haven't seen The Witch. You have, right? I have seen The Lighthouse, and this is not as weird as The Lighthouse. It has that weirdness that I think is inherent in his films, in some parts, but it's like, it's pretty straightforward revenge movie. It's Hamlet. Like Hamlet and it are not that dissimilar.
It is the classic revenge story. You know, if you think of a revenge story, you can't get more classic than Hamlet, because like Hamlet's just like, it's familial. It's just, it's there. It's just like one of the great epic tales of our time. And you know, what is, can you think of a better revenge plot than your uncle killing your father and then marrying your mother, and then you got to get revenge for your father's death?
Yes.
Like that's just like, that feels classic.
Yeah. You have to avenge father, save mother, kill Fjolnir.
Easy formula. You can do Hamlet a million times and it'll always be gold. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, this film, in my opinion, it absolutely delivers on what it promises to be, which is what I think you were speaking a little bit there too, of like, you know, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, this would have been such a sellout. Like people would have like loved this film. And I mean, I love this film for sure, but this is like exactly what I expected when I knew that Robert Eggers was directing this. And then it was like, it's a Viking tale. It's like, yep, this is going to be a brutal Viking epic, and it's going to be super similar to his other films. And I loved it. You know, I love his kind of film. His style of filmmaking is just so weird, but just beautiful at the same time. It's stunning.
Yeah, and it's there have been some weird articles written about this too. I think it was Variety who had the headline was like, the Northman is what happens when you let an indie movie like get the budget out of hand, or like when the budget bloats on an indie movie. It's like, this is less than $100 million and it's a beautiful looking film that tells its story very well. Stop shitting on it. Like, champion good work, Variety, one of the most sort of respected publications in the film like writing business. The fuck. But yeah, it's directed by Robert Eggers, as we've been talking about, and it stars Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Anya Taylor-Joy, Claes Spang, Ethan Hawke, Bjork, and Willem Dafoe. And great cast right there, I think.
Yeah, it's a great cast. I feel like a lot of his films, it's kind of maybe this could be influencing the box office to a certain extent, but you know, it's a very white cast.
It is white, yeah.
Not much diversity in this film. But you know, it's kind of hard to work that in when it's a piece of historical fiction set in Iceland during the 800s. Like, it's just going to be a bunch of white people who live there. Like,
well, yeah, and I mean, there were non-white people who ended up in that region too, because like Vikings traveled all throughout the Mediterranean as well. But also, like, he just cast his movie as he cast his movie. I'm not gonna like shit on him for doing that, even though I prefer diversity. I will say on that note, not that you were doing that, because you weren't, but some jackass on Twitter, which is where all stupid ideas are formed, made the very bold and baseless insinuation that Robert Eggers making a film about a Viking meant he was a white supremacist. And they said he looks like he does, Robert Eggers, and then he made a film about a Viking, and then that makes him a white supremacist, because white supremacists like Vikings. And that was their only logical train of thought. But white supremacists also apparently like My Little Pony, surprisingly. So are you going to call the next My Little Pony director a white supremacist? Probably not. Like, don't throw that shit around unless you have a reason to. Pretty serious accusation.
Right. It's specious reasoning of like, you know, I got this rock here and it's keeping away all the bears, so it must be the rock that's doing the trick. It's like, no, that's the correlation's not there. That was a very poor Simpsons reference on my part as well.
Oh, okay. I was very lost.
Yes. Yeah. I thought I could shoehorn that in.
Yeah. Just if you're like a person who spends your time on the internet, as I do, and as this utter fool of a human does, there are plenty of actual white supremacists you can shit on, and you should do that. It's okay to be mean to them. I'd encourage it even, but don't just like accuse random people of that shit. It's not cool. But
you should have more reasoning behind it than just, hey, I see a small correlation over here. That must imply X, Y, and Z. Like, it's no, you need some more. Come on, come back with some more evidence, and better train of thought than
Yeah,
that.
yeah, like a guy with short hair who made a movie about a Viking character. It's not it. It's not a good
Yeah.
argument.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But let's move on from that.
Yeah. Well,
Stylistically similar to his previous work, I think,
Mhm.
from what I've seen in The Lighthouse.
Yes. Yeah, like The Lighthouse and the Witch, and this movie too, The Northman. Um, his cinematography is really consistent throughout
Mhm.
all of them. Like the way he shoots things, it's always got that kind of like stare that he's got. Like it's not like the Stanley Kubrick stare or anything, but it's like that classic kind of like framing that he's got going on. You'd see it if you like watch the films, but or what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
in terms of like storytelling, it's always this small cast of characters, just a few people. It's not like a
Mhm.
bigger story. It's just like this small isolated group. It's in this historical setting. It's a historical story, and then it's got these elements of like mysticism and otherworldly magic and
Mhm.
all these like greater kind of forces at work that we just can't really see. And then I just love that in all of his films, especially in this one too, but you can see it in the other ones, just like the costume design is amazing. Like it just feels accurate for the time.
Mhm.
And he uses the periodic language, like the way they speak is very it's different. It's a different kind of like speaking. They have the I don't know, just their cadence and just the language itself is very like different from how we speak today, which I really appreciate. It feels authentic and
Mhm.
real, and it just brings such a great atmosphere to his films as well.
Yeah, and I will say like the style and technique is similar to his other films, but I think from the
Mhm.
two I've seen, at least, the aesthetic is totally different.
Yeah.
Like the aspect ratios for one thing are not the same. Lighthouse was in 4:3. This is in I don't know what it is, but it's not 4:3, but it's also
Yeah.
not 16:9. It's something. Movies aren't even in 16:9. That's YouTube videos. It's a slightly different aspect ratio. Like you can tell when they like move the curtains in the theater and where the projection is and all that. But
Yeah.
it looks both distinct and in line with his work, is what I was trying to get.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I like how he plays with the color too. Like, the lighthouse
Mhm.
completely in black and white. And in this one, it's like it kind of teeters on that edge of like some shots are really in color and it's beautiful. And then some of them are just like stark black and white. And I
Mhm.
really enjoy that too. And, I think there's something to be said in the way he uses color in
Mhm.
his films. Like I think you could do a whole essay on the color theory behind Robert Eggers films. It's really neat.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to talk more about the black and white stuff in spoilers too. I don't know if it
yeah,
is a
yeah,
spoiler, but I don't want to do too much before then.
for sure.
And the movie is violent, but I don't think it was like gratuitous. Like it doesn't shy away from showing violent stuff, but it's not like reveling in it either, in the way like a Tarantino movie might,
Hmm. Yeah, it's very calculated in the way it uses the violence.
Mm-hmm.
It punctuates things. But yeah, it's brutal and it feels earned too when
Mm-hmm.
there is violence. Um, and I think it's also to a certain extent like respectful of like Norse mythology and Norse people, like
Uh-huh.
the Vikings, and how they their views of the Norse gods and Valhalla, and how you get there is you die in battle as a
Mm-hmm.
warrior, and they're all respectful of that. Even like when they acknowledge each other as enemies, they're like, yeah, I'll meet you over there and we'll fight to the death. But it's like, cool, awesome, see you in a bit.
Yeah.
I'll go prepare and say my goodbyes and everything.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's like, and I think that plays into the violence as well. Like it's just, our story is focused on various factions of incredibly violent people. So for it not to be a violent movie would be dishonest, but
Mhm.
it doesn't like make you go like, fuck yeah, that was so cool. Like it's very blunt, and
Mhm.
it feels bad a lot of the time. Um it's not a critique of the movie either. It's just, you know, it's not meant to make you feel like, oh, this guy's so cool for killing all these people.
Oh, 100%. It's There is like no levity in this film at all. It is very serious and stoic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the point of it too. Like a lot of his films are like this way, or most of them. There's not a lot of levity. It's serious and honest, and that feels reflective of real life to a certain extent. Especially in these historical settings.
Yeah.
When you're the only group of people for miles around. Yeah, it's kill or be killed. It's survival of the fittest. Like this is what life is, and it's yeah, it's really impactful.
Yeah. And it like we've talked about how Hamlet is based on this. There are obviously a lot of similarities to the play Hamlet. There are a lot of differences as well that we'll talk about in spoilers, because I want to save some surprise for the movie. But final recommendation for me would be absolutely go see it, and make your friends and family go with you.
If you like The Witch, if you like The Lighthouse, you're gonna like this film too. Like it delivers on what it promises to be. It's you'll see a lot of those beautiful recurring motifs and beats from Hamlet. It's even broken up into like 5 acts, not to get too far into it, but just that's kind of just like the play, which is kind of neat. And there's these great themes of fate, inescapable fate, ignorance, family, familicide, revenge, and kindness. Like I would definitely recommend this film if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you like fantasy or you like historical period pieces, like you should go see this movie. So yeah, spoiler time. Let's do it. So
let's dive on in.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about it in non-spoilers because it's what inspired Hamlet. His dad gets killed by his uncle. Sorry if we ruined that for you, but his dad is played by Ethan Hawke. I mean, it's inherent in the story. I think it's okay. But his dad is played by Ethan Hawke, who's like the Viking king of this settlement. And he gets killed by his brother after he and young Amleth do a very strange ritual with Willem Dafoe, where they drink some stuff and hallucinate and fart and burp and act like dogs. And
it's bizarre, but
it's very bizarre. That was the most that was the most like Lighthouse vibe I got from the whole thing, was that part where they're just like sitting there like expelling gas from their bodies.
Yeah, just acting like wolves, like prancing around, like it's so weird. But yeah, it's a bizarre scene. But then as soon as they come out, his uncle basically kills his father, and then that sets up the rest of the movie. We don't see Amleth again until he's a grown man and he's kind of pillaging with this other group, and doing these,
or like wolfmen or bearmen or something. They like
something like that.
And that's I wrote it down later in the notes, but I want to talk about the magic in the movie because they believe in that scene that they're channeling the power of this like wolf spirit or something. And I don't think they are, but it begs the question, how much of the magic in this movie do you think was real and how much of it was just people being high as fuck?
I think a lot of it is superstition, and it's just kind of hyping yourself up. If I'm about to go like raid this village, I want to hype myself up and get like my testosterone going and be like, okay, let's fucking go. I'm gonna go kill some innocents. Like this is gonna be great. I'm gonna rip someone's throat out with my teeth. It's gonna be wonderful.
It's so gruesome. Yeah,
it's gruesome, but it's like, you just really have to hype yourself up. But I think like, of course, like in the cave and stuff, I think that they were tripping, and I think in some instances there are like some drugs and hallucinogens kind of introduced, but I think later on in the film we see like, or consistently throughout the film, we see crows and ravens around, and the ravens are Odin's eyes, and Odin is the Allfather in Norse mythology. And then later on in the film, we see that he kind of he intervenes somewhat to save Amleth's life with the crows. They come in and like, cut the rope and everything for him. So I think that there was a certain degree of mysticism in there and magic, but
magical realism.
Or whatever. Yeah, it is walking a line of like, this is bullshit. this is just to like get you going for survival mode, and then this is real. Like, you know,
Yeah. Well, it's just enough to make you question, right? Because when he goes into like that little mound cave to get the sword, he fights like the corpse of the guy, but then when he wins the fight, the guy is just sitting in a chair, so it was like a hallucination. But he's told beforehand the sword will only come out at night of the scabbard, and he tries to pull it later on during the day, and it doesn't come out. So it's like the fight with the guy was not real; it was a hallucination. But the sword seems to behave in the way it was prophesized to. So is that actual magic, or is that Amleth like subconsciously acting according to the legend he was told because he believes it?
That's a good question.
And it never answers that, and I'm glad it doesn't. I like that it's ambiguous. It's cool.
Yes. Whenever a movie asks a rhetorical question, I'm glad there's no answer or clear answer. You know, interpretation is much better than like, or in a lot of cases, than like a final ending or anything like that. But yeah, I thought that there was a lot of cool use of like mysticism and magic, like the thing in the cave where, you know, he's talking to the other kind of seer, and he's speaking, or it's Willem Dafoe's character kind of speaking through him to him, and he's like, "How are you, little pup?" And it's like, "Oh, that feels real to me."
Yeah. Well, and for context, Willem Dafoe's character at this point is dead and is just a disembodied head, which
he is
referenced in Hamlet by poor Yorick, the skull.
Yeah, alas, poor York.
Yes, alas, poor York.
But I think, you know, like with the even with like the seeress, you know, York's character, when she comes into play after Hamlet's kind of like he's just kind of like hanging out after they pillaged that village,
burned all the kids.
Yeah, they burned all the kids, and I liked the costume design on that too. She looked amazing. But like that, you know, seemed to me as like, this is perfect. And this is magic. That whole piece of magic, I thought that felt incredibly real to me. It wasn't just like a, you know, he's hallucinating or he's just like having a vision. It's like, no, this is incredibly real, and it's relating to the Norse gods and Odin. Like, this is you're getting this urge, or like this reminder that you need to follow through on your vow to you know, avenge your father's death. And he follows through on that. You know, he disguises himself as a slave to come to his uncle's village, and you know, it kind of escalates from there too.
Yeah, but she does vanish like a vision would, so it's unclear enough. But that's a good point to jump back to the black and white, I couldn't tell if it was full black and white or if it was just really desaturated. But either way, it only happens at night, from what I can remember. I noticed that, and I think it's almost all of the night scenes, not all of them, but most of them are in black and white. Or
what I think that I noticed was that like a lot of the magic scenes where he's you know, that CRS scene right there, that felt really desaturated. And then I think later on,
the duel with the thing with the dead guy,
I was kind of making more of a correlation between the duel with the dead guy. Absolutely, there's some desaturation there going on. I think the desaturation just kind of really comes into play during like the magic scenes of like, I can't remember exactly, but like, you know, that initial scene where they're doing the wolf thing in the cave, that felt very desaturated to me. But then when they were the guys just around the fire doing the same thing, but without like any drugs or anything, that wasn't as desaturated. That was more just like them hyping themselves up too. So I think there might be something to say there about like magic and like what is real and what's bullshit.
Yeah. And just one side note, it's beautifully shot. Sound design is great. Music is great. Always got to address that. It's like visually and auditorily amazing all around.
Yes, it's a visual spectacle and it's great. And yeah, it's just a fantastic way to spend a piece of your Saturday. Go check out this movie. Like,
so the mantra in the trailer, and that Amleth lives by for probably like 20 years is avenge father, save mother, kill Fjolnir, his uncle. And for the entire time from when he's a little kid to when we see him again, I don't think he had any other motivation other than that. He never grows beyond that like pretty childish need for revenge as we see throughout the movie. And it's kind of tragic. And when they raid the village at the beginning, you know, there's that little kid running away through the village, and Almuth kind of looks at him, and it seems like he's making a connection between his life and this kid's life, but ultimately he's like, yeah, fuck it, revenge. And he doesn't think about it more beyond that.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a sad thing about his life too, because you know, there is that point later in the movie where he comes to kind of confront his mother and speak to her and be like, I'm here to kind of rescue you and avenge my father. And he mentions like, all my life, it's like some kind of line like this, like, all my life I've only known death. And then once I have my revenge, I'll see if life is worth living. So, you know, not to say that he is like suicidal or anything, but you can kind of see that mirror with Hamlet of Hamlet's to be or not to be. And he's kind of playing with his own existence of like, well, I don't know if life is really worth living, until he gets inspired later on to avenge his father. And, you know, it is kind of a tragic life of your only motive is revenge. And then after that, it's like life doesn't necessarily matter to him, or at least it didn't at several parts through this film. I think he grew a little bit throughout the movie. And yeah, I think, you know, even with his decision at the end, which we can talk about a little bit too, of like between Olga, like his kin, and getting revenge, he chooses both. And I think that kind of like is important to his character growth of making that decision of like, I don't need to necessarily do one thing or the other. I can focus on family and I could get revenge. You know, it's not one choice or the other.
Yeah, I actually disagree with his decision, or the read on his decision. Like, he says he chooses both, but he doesn't. He chooses revenge. Like, like there, because he freaks out. It's like, oh, they'll find us. It's like, no, they won't. Why would they find you? That's dumb. Don't worry about it. Like, you're going to a totally different country. They don't know you're alive. They don't know what happened to you. Like, leave it. But he chooses revenge over his family. It's like, is she even pregnant with his kids? He thinks so because he hallucinated a king tree that has little babies on it. But the hell does that mean? But and I think, and I'm sure you agree, but I think it's just like a rule of writing where if your character has gotten off of the path of revenge and they're moving on to a better life, and then they make a choice to go back onto it, it's like they have to die. If they're making the right decision and then they go back, they must die by the end. I think I don't think I've ever seen it not play out that way.
Yeah, I would agree. But you know, my argument there would be that Amleth kind of exists in this vicious cycle, or at least these Vikings do, of where you have to kind of kill your uncle or kill some family member to seize the crown and seize power. And then that's going to inspire some more revenge. Like, I think they even mentioned it at the start of the film, like the mom and the king were talking to each other, like kind of on like the bedside. And they were talking about like, oh, you know, I need to name him as my heir soon. And they were talking about stuff. And she was like, well, it's different for you because you had to like kill your uncle for the crown. So this is like different.
Yeah.
So it's like, the cycle, the story is repeating itself over and over again of, you know, the crown being usurped and family killing family. It's just kind of begetting this cycle of like butchery and rape and slavery and slave trading and all this other stuff, like just the cycle of suffering to a degree. And I think when he does make that decision, he's kind of like cutting the strings of fate a little bit. You know, he says that, I think like he adds it into his chant too at the end of like I will avenge you, father, I'll save you, mother, and I'll kill you, Fjolnir. And then he also says something about like, and I will cut the strings of fate or something like that. So I think his decision to, you know, leave Olga on that ship with his family, you know, was, you know, yeah, he is obviously going off to pursue revenge when he could have gotten away with it and it would have been fine. Like there's no reason why he had to go kill that family. But to me, it was just kind of like he's severing all ties with it. He's saying the cycle ends here. It ends here at the gates of hell. And this is where it's just going to be. And I'm just going to assume my family, my progeny continues to live on. That was my read on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he closes the loop on that one branch of this cycle of violence, but it's like, it's just like we talked about at the village at the beginning where he sees the little kid. It's like, well, that kid could grow up to be just like him and have his own quest for revenge against the people who attacked his village. And and like, and it plays into there are two elements. One, there are no good guys in this movie. Amleth is a piece of shit. He's a bad person. And he kills everyone. Like, oh no, your dad got killed. That's really bad, and you want revenge. But his form of revenge is like, I'm gonna kill 50 people, including a tiny child. Like, sorry, bro, that's not revenge anymore. You're just doing your own shit. Like, you're just like,
that's just Anakin on Tatooine, just getting revenge for his mother, killing the entire village, like slaughtering them like animals. Like,
yes, exactly. It is that. But it also, the cycle of violence is very interesting when it comes to Fjolnir because his entire character is a subversion of what we're used to in the adaptation Hamlet. Like, Claudius is the king now. He's in charge of Hamlet's home. So Hamlet's quest, in addition to getting revenge for his father's death, and saving his mother. I don't remember in Hamlet if what is his mother's name? I can't remember her. But if she was down for the relationship or not with Claudius, I cannot remember. It's been so long since I've read it. But
I think, I can't remember either entirely.
I remember her being more hostage than willing participant, but that could be wrong, and it probably varies by version of the play. But the interesting thing for me with Fjolnir was, by the time Amleth sets out on his revenge, Fjolnir has already lost the kingdom. Like,
yeah,
he's lost and fled to another country, and he's just a farmer now.
Yeah, he lost everything in his like power struggle for the throne and for the woman that he loved, and in the process, he lost everything. Like, it is bizarre.
It's such a great subversion of this like revenge trope, because there's no like glory or romanticization of this revenge quest, which there is to a degree in Hamlet, even though Hamlet's a mopey bastard the entire time. It's like there's a sense of reclaiming your home, and he's not doing that. He's going to a guy's farm and fucking some people up for a couple weeks, and that is the extent of his mission, is to just be a violent nuisance to this family. And then the like noblest ambition he has is rescuing his mother, and she doesn't even want that.
Right. Like, the only kind of good thing that I guess he does at the end is like freeze the slaves and is like, do what you want with your life. I don't care. And then that's like the best thing he did in the entire movie, or the nicest thing.
But it also, like, your impulse is to think, oh, Fjolnir is collecting slaves, like that's what the villain does, but it's like, that's what everybody does in this movie. Ethan Hawke did it. Amleth and his like tribesmen do it. Fjolnir does it. Like, they're all bad for doing this. They're all equally evil in this perpetuation of slavery, and they even talk about it. Fjolnir and his little kid, and Nicole Kidman and the same kid, I think, they're like, we could be the slaves tomorrow. Like, that's just how this goes. Someone could overthrow us, and then we're in their position. So it's just like being as violent as possible and maintaining power for like a couple years until you get overthrown and put in shackles and sold to someone.
Yeah, right. And I mean, what I also like about this film too, like you're saying, there's no good guy. Everyone's a piece of shit, because it's a brutal time, and the systems of the time are kind of dictating people to act a certain way. But even though Amleth or Fjolnir, he betrays his brother and kills him and steals his wife and kingdom and all that, there's like these kinds of like, there was at least like one or two like micro moments in the film where it's like, oh, he's actually a good leader. Like he
Mhm.
kind of relays this message to his son of like, why we need to be doing work in front of people, even though we have slaves. It's like, we need to show people that we're good leaders and we can do the work. Like,
Mhm.
that we're kind of like one of the
Yeah.
kin. Like, and it's like,
And there's
you know,
self-preservation in there as well, but
exactly. But it's like, people are complex.
Mhm.
A good guy isn't just always, inherently moral or good, and a bad guy isn't always just like scheming away in his cave. People are layered and they're dynamic, and I think
Mhm.
this film kind of brought that to light a little bit. Like, we are rooting a little bit for Amleth to succeed and get his revenge, but at the same time, it's like, just like you were saying, he kills like hundreds of people in the process just to get his revenge. And it's like, why did all those extra people need to die? Like,
Yeah.
you're begetting violence. Like, it's just a cycle still.
Yeah, it's like you could have like snuck in and killed the guy you wanted to kill in his sleep. You didn't want to do that though. You wanted to be the terror of the farm. And
Yeah.
and he like dismembers 3 people and like goes full on fucking White Walker with it on the wall of that building, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, the fact that he did that in one night too, like, kudos.
Not even a full night. He did it very quickly. I don't know how he did that, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Yeah, it's great though, and we're not saying any of this is bad stuff. By the way, it's all good.
Oh,
But I think your point about people being complicated is right, because there are a couple of moments in the movie where I'm like, I don't hate this Fjolnir guy as much as Amleth does. He's an asshole, but he's not any more of an asshole than anyone else. Like,
right. Or like, even, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh, just Ethan Hawke's character. Like, we find out his wife was a slave that he bought. Nicole Kidman was a slave who became a queen, and she hated him.
Yeah, that's true. I was just about to say that same thing. She was more of a prisoner or a mate than loved one. Just someone to kind of continue the bloodline. And, even when Amleth experiences life as a slave too, because there's a good portion of the film where he is a slave and he's having to do all the slave work. I feel like that kind of gives him a good sense of perspective and why he kind of freed the slaves at the end. To a certain extent. But it's also, he meets Olga of the Birch Forest when he's a slave, and that becomes his only love connection in his life, because he's never loved a woman before besides maybe his mother.
He actually meets her before that. She's out of focus in the background, but when they're raiding that village, she goes for one of his men with a knife in the background. She's the blonde girl going for one of his men. So he captured her and enslaved her. His group of people did. And he joins. Yeah. That's why he cuts his hair before he gets on the boat, because it's like his people driving that boat, or people that his people dealt with. So that's why she recognizes him immediately and calls him like Northman, because they just fought against each other.
Right.
So let's talk about. Let's talk. I mean, it's not focused on at all. I just like her hair is called attention to later in the movie. So, and I didn't remember seeing any other characters with that hair color. So I could be wrong. I am assuming that's her, because she's the only one with that hair color. But let's talk about Olga a little bit.
Let's.
Anya Taylor-Joy does a great job, of course. I thought it was interesting how quickly Amleth and Olga like align and open up with each other to each other. Like, he just lays out his whole plan to this woman he met a day ago or something. Maybe a little bit longer.
They do kind of. I think that was one point of the film that caught me by surprise too, is how quickly that happened. One minute they're just kind of like slaves who are a little like standoffish to each other, and then the next they're like walking the slave line. He's like, I'm a prince and I'm here to avenge my father. It's like, dude, everyone can hear you. Like, what are you doing? And it is kind of interesting how quickly they connect and fall in love. But at the same time, I'll just put an asterisk there of like, he hasn't interacted with too many women in his life. in a romantic way that we know of. Like, you know, he's an orphan for like a good portion of his life, and you know, he's just on this quest of revenge the whole time. So to me, that is a little bit realistic of, yeah, if I never met a woman before or like interacted with one in a serious way, I think I might fall more in love with her if the situation presented itself.
Yeah. And I do think by the end of the movie, she does have genuine love or affection for him. But I'm not beyond the thought that like at the beginning, it is a survival instinct that she pairs up with him so quickly, which kind of makes sense. And also Nicole Kidman's character as well, his mother, I think she has similar instincts, because I mean, the whole world is horrible in this movie, and it's even more horrible to women than it is to anybody else. So
yeah,
so when Nicole Kidman is telling Amleth, like, I was laughing and happy when your father died, like, I think I heard this from the Weekly Planet initially, but it's like, did she actually feel that way, or has she just convinced herself that that's how she felt to cope with the situation she found herself in? Because as soon as Amleth is like getting the upper hand on the situation, she's like, I mean, if you kill my husband, like, I could sleep with you. So
it's like, oh, that's a little bit Oedipus.
Yeah, it's like very Oedipus, but also it like comes off as psychotic initially, but this also in her mind is like, this is the only way I survive this situation.
Well, yeah, and I think, you know, like in the film too, and Amleth comes back and he's like, I'm here for my revenge, like before Olga's about to be like kind of killed.
Yeah.
She's able to escape, and we see that shot of her kind of like running away, and she turns back, and it's like, oh, that could have been an interesting point where it's like she just abandoned him, because it was just like you were saying, he was a tool for survival, and she saw an opportunity and was like, I'm gonna run. But yeah, at the end she does come back for him and kind of saves the day for him.
I think she evolved past the basic survival instinct, but also maybe not, because is she going to survive on her own out in Iceland? I don't know. But I do think it's important for the theme of the story that their relationship is genuine by the end. So I believe that it is, because for me, I read it as like Amleth had a opportunity for some sort of happiness and a life, and he throws that away. So if it's not genuine, that kind of falls apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can see kind of like a little bit of a parallel there with like Hamlet and Ophelia too. Of course, because Hamlet's based on Amleth, of course. But you know, there's that classic line from Hamlet that he says to Ophelia of like, "Get thee to a nunnery," and that's basically telling her like I'm not worth your time. Like, I don't care how in love you are with me. Like, your time is better spent if you took yourself to a nunnery and became a nun than it would be like trying to like win my affection or like follow me until the end of my days. Like, so I mean, the relationships are obviously different.
The dynamics are very different.
Exactly. But I think that there's like, there is some similarity there between those two different relationships.
Yeah. Let's see what else we've got here. I loved the visual of what I'm assuming is Yggdrasil, the world tree, and the Valkyrie riding to and from it. Or maybe that's just Valhalla. I don't know. I
think she was the Valkyrie was probably taking him to Valhalla. But yeah, the tree, like the family tree there, was actually really interesting.
The Tree of Kings, I think they call it at one point.
I think so. That one looked a lot like the Tree of Life. Yeah, the Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil is the world tree.
Thank you.
And it's what connects the 9 realms together.
Yes, that's right.
Is it 9 realms in Norse mythology, or is that just Marvel?
No, it's 9. It's 9.
It's 9. Okay.
Yeah, I just read that Norse mythology book by Neil Gaiman, so I got.
Oh, that's right.
Got plenty of Norse mythology on my mind right now.
Niflheim, Muspelheim, Asgard, Midgard, Jotunheim, Vanaheim, Alfheim, Svartalheim.
There's all sorts of stuff.
Yes. But I liked that visual. I liked the Valkyrie.
Me too.
It was cool.
The Valkyrie was cool looking. I liked her a lot.
Yeah. You mentioned Odin and the crows. That might be another example of magical realism too, him getting out of there. Or it may have just been the crows that let him out. Who knows?
Well, Robert Eggers likes to do this kind of witchy, magical stuff, and he likes to play with animals too, like the way he uses animals in the films, like in the Lighthouse, he uses a seagull, and
and the
Robert
mermaid
Pattinson,
too.
Yeah, and the mermaid, like he likes to use these kind of like everyday normal characters and some more kind of mystical characters. And as soon as Robert Pattinson kills the seagull, like things just take a left turn for him in that movie. And in The Witch, he uses some cool animals in there too, of like rabbits. But then there's also like, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's like a goat that's a pretty big kind of like plot point. And so I like the way that he uses just animals, and like with the crows was really neat. Because Owen's always got those two crows right by his head, just whispering in his ear everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I like the way he plays with supernatural elements. Like it's weird enough to where there might be something bigger going on, or there might not be. Especially like in the Lighthouse to an even greater extent than this. Like, is there something like causing them to go insane, or is it just two dudes going fucking crazy because they're stuck on an island for like months on end? Right. Who knows? It's not gonna tell you.
Yeah, it really isn't. But I did appreciate like all the references to Norse mythology in there. There's even like references to Freya and Fenrir the wolf. Like that stuff is really cool. Like I'm sure if I'm gonna probably rewatch this film at some point, and I'm sure I'll catch a lot of other like, oh, I missed that, and this time I'll watch it with subtitles so I hear everything.
Yeah, they also do mention Christianity when the ship starts going crazy. I forget exactly why they come up, but they do kind of dismiss them as like crazy people who nailed their god to a tree.
Yeah, well, it's when he did the White Walker thing with the bodies, and they're like, oh, they nailed their god to a tree. Yeah, it's bizarre, but like I feel like it's pretty accurate of how Norse people would view Christianity at the time too. Like it's real, it feels realistic to me in that sense of like, the Norse people have always kind of worshipped these like core gods, and like it's more about like focusing on the nature more or less, and like how everything's interconnected. And then if you like look across like the Mediterranean, you go down that way and you see Christianity, it's like, what the fuck are they doing? They're nailing their god up to on a post. Like, what are these stories? Why?
Right. And it took a long time for Christianity to be as like hegemonic as it became in Europe and the rest of like the Western world. So like, I'm not sure exactly where it was at 800. I don't even know if this was AD or BC. I forgot. It would be AD. Of course, I'm so stupid. If it was BC, there wouldn't be Christianity.
We're traveling back in time.
Yep, that's an L on my part. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly where it would have been in its spread at that point. But that is an interesting touch. We talked about the sort of meaninglessness of the quest for revenge. And I guess to elaborate on that, it's like really like Ethan Hawke's character had a pretty small little kingdom that he probably stole from his uncle, right? And then Fjolnir stole it from him, and then he lost it, and then Amleth is just on a farm killing people to avenge his father and his kingdom that is gone. Like it's just like it just really nails down how useless all of this nonsense is. Like this is just some petty fuckers like quest to kill another guy. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, sure, you can have as many visions and hallucinations and like interactions with, CRSs, and, you can take as many drugs as you want. But at the end of the day, like what makes your like quest for revenge valid? Like
exactly.
Nothing.
And it's so small. Like the contrast between the grand visions and the volcano fight and the like secret magical sword. Even the sword, it's just in like a small little mound in the hill, like a little grave mound. But the contrast between like the grandiosity of what he thinks he's doing with what he's actually doing, which is just killing people on a farm, is so interesting.
Yeah, it's like, really, dude, you don't need to do all this stuff. You can just like go off with Olga and like have a happy life. But
yeah, it kind of
well.
reminds me in that way of the Green Knight. Is like kind of a takedown of this idealized version of these people. Like the knight on a noble quest in the Green Knight is just like a horny, like directionless punk who has to learn what honor means. And then in this, it's like, like the Hamlet treats it in sort of a grand way. The Lion King treats it in an even grander way. And then you have this where it's like, yeah, he's just gonna kill a farmer.
Yeah. It's like, okay, dude. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, while we're talking kind of about Hamlet, like we kind of danced around it a little bit. But there were just a few kind of parallels that I wanted to call it, or
Okay.
I feel like I found. I don't know if you found any other ones. But you kind of also referenced like one of the things that I caught was Willem Dafoe's character, Hemir. He's actually, like, I looked up his name. It's like Hemir the Fool. So kind of like poor Yorick, of course, because Yorick was a court jester, which is akin to a fool. And but that skull is exactly poor Yorick's skull. He knew him well, which I thought was a great kind of motif to throw in there. I already mentioned the his kind of to be or not to be speech to his mother, which was kind of neat. And then I think his mom also, to a certain extent, she exhibited some entirely different Shakespeare play of Lady Macbeth, of like, yes, kill your uncle and like I'll marry you and that's fine, like I just want to be the queen forever. But that's kind of a little bit of a stretch, I would say. And then of course he's swearing to avenge his father's death repeatedly. Hamlet does the same thing after seeing his father's ghost. And I felt like the CRS was more or less like the ghost of his father.
Serves the same role narratively.
Yeah,
at least.
it does. And like, the crows that he sees throughout the movie are kind of, I think, representations of his father too. And the acts, the acts of the play, it's broken out into 5 separate acts, and that's very similar to how the play is structured. You can go through it act by act and kind of piece some stuff out of like, oh yeah, that's something in there, that's that. And we already talked about Hamlet and Olga in a different version of Hamlet and Ophelia. So I guess we kind of covered a lot of it already.
Yeah, all the Hamlet stuff.
But it's, again, I think when you rewatch this film, or when I rewatch it, I'm sure I'm going to pull out some things. Like there weren't like specific characters in there like Mercutio or
Rosencrantz and
Guildenstern. Thank you.
Mercutio's Romeo and Juliet.
It's Romeo and Juliet. I was mixing up my plays. Too many plays in my head. But I think that there's a lot of motifs that you could probably pull out of the film and say, oh wow, that was really fucking cool how they shoehorned that in.
Yeah. It's time to talk about the naked Revenge of the Sith fight.
Ooh.
Yeah. Apparently, Robert Eggers is quoted as saying that he wants, for the record, that this was another film where he wanted penises on screen and did not get them. So that's why you don't see anything in the final fight. But they are just they set a tea time, and they're like, we're gonna go to hell and we're gonna fight. And they're like, okay. Which is I think it is how people would have done this often, like in that time. But it is funny how, like, going back to that contrast, it's like they have their epic duel on the erupting volcano, but it's like they set it up ahead of time, like they made an appointment and then they go make their meet. And it's pretty funny because it's so arbitrary. They could have just fought and had it over with, but no, it's like, we're gonna fight at the gates of hell. It's like, is that hell or is it just a volcano? It's just a volcano, but it's hell to you. So
Yeah. Well, the thing is with Norsemen too,
Mhm.
is that they when you die as a Norseman, you can either go to one of two places. You can go to hell or you
Mhm.
can go to Valhalla.
Right.
And hell is where like all the women and children go, and all the people who did not die in battle,
Mhm.
they just go to hell, and that's their afterlife. But if you die in battle, glorious battle, swinging your sword and you're courageous, then you go to Valhalla, which is like, as I understand it, you're just feasting all day. It's just a glorious kind of place to be. It's I wouldn't say paradise, but pretty close to it, probably. Um, so I think that's probably what they were thinking in their heads of like, we can't fight here, or we can't just like die here. We need to have an epic fucking fight over
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
But
I do just think it's funny though, because like to the myth teller later on, like and Amleth and Fjolnir had their epic duel on the slopes of hell, and it's like, yeah, because they made an appointment and they kept the
yeah.
appointment. Like they scheduled it out. They're like, I'll meet you there, and then they meet each other there. There's no subterfuge. It's just like, we're gonna go to the volcano. We're gonna take all our clothes off and we're gonna sword fight. It's so
Yeah,
funny.
it's a bit strange. I was at the movie theater I was in. I think I texted you about this
Mhm.
too. It was like, as soon as the movie was over, these obnoxious motherfuckers in the row behind us were just like, I would have liked more dong in that movie. I'm like, the fuck, like, really? That's what you're like focused on?
Better than the guy in my theater. Is like some 60-something-year-old dude. Movie ends and he gets up and turns to his like grandson or whatever. He's like, it's better. It's better when it was on the TV. And I was like, the fuck? He's talking about Vikings. He was just like, I like Vikings better. And I'm like, dude, come on. No
Completely
shade.
different story.
No, exactly. I'm like, no shade to the show Vikings, but it's like, look at two completely different things, but they have a similar visual aesthetic. So it's like, the TV's better. And then he said it again in the bathroom. I heard him say it again.
Come on, dude.
It was like, homie, this is not that profound of a thought. You didn't have to repeat yourself.
Yeah, like, yes, they're very different stories. Let's let's focus on something else.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But the fight at the end was great. They both die, as is deserved. And
Yes.
Amleth seems to think that he's ensured his royal legacy with the kids that he might have. And we never see Olga again, so we will never know.
Yeah, that witch doing her own witch thing. Yeah, I wonder how much of her witch stuff was real and what wasn't, because she had her
Oh,
own little magic spells
well,
too,
it was just, yeah, I think it was more just like working with herbs and poisons and stuff. Like it was
Yeah, I think so.
because she
For sure.
poisoned the soup so that they all would
Right.
hallucinate, which was awesome. That was a great
Mhm.
scene. But yeah, I think the closest character to being a good person was probably her. I think at the end of the day, she was just trying to survive as much as anyone else was, but she did seem to give a shit about what was going on by the end. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, if I had to say there was like one innocent character in the film, I'd say it was the horses, and the horses die every time. The poor
yeah,
horses.
yeah. And I mean, there was an interesting element too about when he saves the younger kid of Fjolnir's and he gets like elevated to like, I don't know, slave middle manager. And
Yeah, a small promotion.
yeah, and it like allowed. I guess the like biggest piece of shit was Fjolnir's oldest son. Like he is just
Yeah.
vindictive to all the slave characters. No good reason for that, and it was good that he died. But when Amleth just like murders the little kid at the end, like self-defense, I suppose, but also I don't know. You like it's the cycle. The cycle is so prevalent. It's like if Amleth was in that situation, he would do the exact same thing as a little kid. And if
Hmm.
the little kid grew up and went on his own quest of revenge against Amleth for killing his family, exact same thing would play out there. So it's just like petty little fuckers just killing each other in revenge over and over and over again, causing more people to need revenge, and it would never end.
Yeah.
Except that everybody died.
Yay! Finality.
But it's excellent. It's great.
Yeah, all in all, I think if you've seen the previous films that Robert Eggers has created, you're going to be really satisfied when you leave the theater after this. This is like exactly what I wanted when I saw this trailer was announced and he was the director, and I'm like, yes, please give me more. And it delivered on what I feel like it promised. It felt authentic and real. It was dynamic and serious, mystic, foreboding, atmospheric, and just epic.
I totally agree, and I would even go so far as to say, I can't speak for The Witch, but this film is much more accessible than The Lighthouse is.
Yeah.
So like, The Lighthouse is awesome, but it's very fucking weird, and this is weird too. But it's weird couched in with your standard revenge narrative. So it's much more accessible and easy viewing than The Lighthouse is. I don't know if that's true for The Witch as well, but it's a good entry point to Eggers, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say The Witch is kind of more of a horror film. And The Lighthouse is probably, not as much horror, but this one is more, the Viking, or the Northman, excuse me, is clearly like an epic story of just adventure and, revenge. And it's, much more accessible. 100% agree with you there. If I had one complaint, I mentioned, or we kind of talked about it earlier, of like the relationship, like that maybe could have taken a little bit more time to develop, but at the same time, I have another complaint of, it kind of took its time. This movie was, it's not like 3 hours long, but it does absolutely take its time, and could have been a little shorter maybe, but I don't know. I don't have many complaints about this film in general. I think it was beautiful in so many different regards.
All right. Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the pacing. I liked it, but
good.
I also just, not important, but early on in the movie, it's in the trailer, they're raiding that little village. Someone throws a spear off the wall and he catches it and throws it back, and it's really cool.
I loved that. That was beautiful.
Yeah, but it's an excellent film. Go see it. I think we should all want it to succeed as fans of cinema. So
I wonder what his next movie will be.
He does have that naming convention, doesn't he? The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman.
He likes that.
I think I remember from an interview that he, and I could be making this up, but I think he had some frustration working on a project of this scale. So it seems like he might want to go back to a smaller scale thing. I think he felt he didn't have as much control over it. Which is usually what happens. But glad I had no problems with it. So I like the result. But with that, let's do some other stuff. What have you been watching or reading or playing?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that I finished the Norse mythology book by Neil Gaiman, or Gaiman. Can never pronounce it how I think I should. But it was an excellent little book. It's just him retelling a lot of Norse tales. So that was really neat. And the other day we actually watched Ponyo, that Studio Ghibli film from 2008. And it's just a really fun film. And the language is really funny in it. Like it's one of those movies that like it's got a lot of like cool fantasy elements to it, and it doesn't really explain them or elaborate them or really explore them. It just kind of hones in on a group of characters, and that's totally fine for the film it was. I love
kind of all Studio Ghibli movies, right?
They kind of gloss over a lot of the details, and they just say, there's magic at play. Ooh.
Yeah.
We don't need to go too far into the details, but Ponyo is excellent. It's a fun little movie. And then more or less, I've just been watching a lot of Moon Knight and Halo. I haven't watched the most recent episode, but I feel like it's just kind of like Okay, I'll get it over with now.
Yeah.
Not like Moon Knight. Moon Knight, am just loving.
Moon Knight's really fun. The last episode was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
If they're being honest about it being a mini series, I'm a little worried about how much character shit they got to wrap up in that last episode, though.
Yeah,
Like, there's
it is
a
gonna be
lot of stuff to still be resolved, and I'm not talking about like cliffhangers or world building or stuff like that, but there's a lot going on with Mark and Steven. Layla's not in the latest episode because of what's going on, so it's like we need to pick up with her. What is Ethan Hawke's character's actual plan? What is he doing? What's going to happen with that?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to do, but it's been good.
Very
so
true.
far. So.
Well, yeah, I think so too. What about you? What have you been up to lately, Dylan?
I got and started playing Thronebreaker, which is a spinoff of the Witcher games, where the combat of the game is Gwent, which is the in-universe card game that you can play in The Witcher 3. People liked Gwent enough to where it just got its own standalone game, Gwent, and now there's this Thronebreaker game that I didn't know existed until last week. But it was on sale for like $2, so I just got it.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been playing a little bit of Dark Souls 1 because I finished Elden Ring. I want to go back to the start, and Demon Souls is start, but I can't play Demon Souls because I don't have a PlayStation. But playing a little bit of Dark Souls 1, I have gotten back to the farthest area I ever got on my initial playthrough in much less time because I have a better understanding of the mechanics. I'm not very far, but I understand it better. It's weird going from Elden Ring to Dark Souls, though, because the combat is so much more slow. And it doesn't, people will hate me for this, but it doesn't feel quite as good. But it's also a game that came out 11 years ago, so you can't.
Yeah, it's got its limitations.
But yeah, I've also been watching Moon Knight and Halo. The most recent Halo was okay. It cut out. It was just the Master Chief side of the story, and the show is better when it's just that side of the story. Nothing on Madrigal, which is good because all of that is filler and it's not interesting.
Yeah, I don't care for that plot line, and yeah, I think you're right too. Like in our previous episode, we were talking about it, is like the budget strikes again in this series of like they just don't have the budget to like consistently do the things that Halo is known for, which is the Covenant and the shooting fights and the action and like displaying these cool ass worlds. Like it's taking its slow time because it has to, because it's constrained by budget and because they have to create some kind of story for the viewers, and unfortunately a lot of that is filler, like you're saying.
Yeah, and the like big battle at the end of the episode from not last week but the one before, I'm guessing the last one you watched, like it's a good battle. So, yeah. It's a good Halo battle, and you have like Chief and Cortana working together. It feels right, which is what I hope the show gets to. Like, I don't like this show, but I want it to get good. Like, it's been renewed for a season 2, so they have a shot.
Don't miss.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I want it to succeed. I like Halo. I want this to succeed. And I want to like the Madrigal stuff, but it's just fucking boring.
Yeah.
It's the most cliche sci-fi bullshit ever. Like, it's just not interesting. The most recent episode was kind of interesting, and I like all of the UNSC characters and the casting and everything. I like all of them. They're fine. Focus.
Don't take me to Madrigal and that annoying girl doing her thing. Like,
yeah. And I don't really give a shit about the Soren guy either. I'm sorry. I like, he's trying to like be a cool pirate guy, but he just is kind of annoying. And the place where he lives just looks like a garage that they put some crates in. Like it just looks it looks cheap. So I don't want to see that. And the set design really bothers me in this show for the UNSC. Like, everything is just big empty rooms, and maybe there's a table. There's no like it's not like utilitarian or militaristic in a way, like where it's basic because it's just like bare minimum for like cadets or something. That would be fine. That's arguably what it should be. But it's like very clean and like gray and white, and it looks weird. There's one scene in the it looks so goofy. The like council is all meeting or something in this room, and it's like the little mini council, and it's just a big empty room, and they're standing in a circle, and they have little projector screens in front of them, and it looks really goofy. And then they turn off their screens, and it looks even goofier because this big room apparently just exists for people to stand around in a circle.
We need all this space. We just need it for some reason.
Yeah, and maybe the aesthetic will change as the series goes on, but it like Reach, the planet they're on, like in Halo Reach, like there's this cool sort of like Art Deco architectural style to a lot of the cities. It's like that's not there in the show. Why didn't you do that? It was like a cool looking city, but now it's just like basic sci-fi. Whatever. I don't want to shit on Halo too much. We do it every week
for sure.
But there's maybe potential there, and the frustrating part is like he didn't have the budget to do the Covenant right. Option 1, don't make Halo. Option 2, make a story in the Halo universe within your budget. Make Alien, but in the Halo universe. Then you like that's part of why Alien is what it is. 1, the creature wasn't all there yet, and 2, probably budget. Like an Alien works. You barely see the alien, but when you do, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like that would be kind of cool. Like a shipping frigate or something gets invaded by Covenant elites and maybe a hunter or something like that. And it's just these like unprepared people having to survive.
Ooh, that could be kind of cool. I'd be into that.
Do something like that. Work within your budget. Paramount.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll get better, but
it's still got a lot of episodes left. It's like 4 episodes.
Oh God. Well, I'll get to those eventually.
Yeah, but hey, who knows? Maybe everything has been cheap looking because they're saving the budget for the last 4 episodes, and they'll just
those last they could be saving up for some cool ass shit. We'll see.
We will see. But until next episode, if all goes as planned, Moon Knight and Doctor Strange, big episode because Moon Knight ends the day before, and then after that, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent in a month from now. So, and we should go see that soon because I don't know how it's doing at the box office, and I don't want to miss the movie because we waited too long.
Yeah. We'll check that out soon. Yeah, excited for next week as well. Yeah, that'll be a fun one. Good return to like the big blockbuster kind of stuff.
And be aware, apparently there are massive plot leaks for Doctor Strange floating around out there. Every time, man.
Love it.
They gotta get it together.
Well, I just don't understand why there's people who are like, I gotta leak the plot and spoil it and share it with everybody. It's like, God, it's so easy to just say, no, I'm not gonna spoil it, but
it's just for clout. Like,
yeah,
they get the info, they post about it, they get views. That's it. That's it. It's like when fucking John Campea leaked the images of all 3 Spider-Men together, and then like they were real. Then later that day he was like, no, they're fake. You can see the light. It's from different angles. He definitely got a call from Sony or Marvel. It's like, we will execute you if you don't delete these images now.
We're gonna find the shit out of you.
Yeah. It's like, just if you're a pundit and you get leaked information about a movie that people are excited for, just delete the email.
Oh yeah.
Be cool. It's
way better approach.
Yeah.
Well, until our next episode, which will be in 2 weeks, Dylan, where can people find you online?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at D-Day Movies, YouTube D-Day Movies, Twitch D-Day_movies, and that's all. What about you, Miles?
people can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. And we would also really appreciate it if you gave the podcast a follow on your streaming service of choice.
Yes.
Leave us a review if you can. We greatly appreciate it. And, if there's something that you want to hear us talk about, like a movie or a show or anything like that, let us know. We'd love to, if just tweet at us or anything like that, or send us an email. We're always happy to take fan suggestions and talk about things that are going on in the world of entertainment.
And our last episode on YouTube popped off pretty high. So if you're new to the show, welcome. Hi.
Welcome. Thanks for sticking around and checking us out.
Yeah. But yeah, that's great. We will see you guys back in 2 weeks for a big Marvel extravaganza, and then back to indie stuff right after that. And then who knows? We'll figure it out from there. But we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.